And what I mentioned before about the different data types behaving differently, I'm going to show you right now when I use when I add text to a number. So this function doesn't know what A and B is. It doesn't know whether A or B is a number or text or anything. So if I basically add my name to the number 1, right, it's going to convert the result into a piece of text. So this is, in programming terms, it's called a string, and it's generally delineated by quotation marks. So anytime you see quotation marks around something, you know that you're dealing with a string. So like you've seen here, strings can be added to numbers, strings can be added to other strings. So I can do, I'm leaving a piece of white space here, right? And now that creates, as expected, this string. But since everything is also an object, you know, strings have different properties than numbers. So let's say if I make this an official string, right? If I use the dot operator, as you've seen before, I get at sort of all the kind of properties that this object has. So a string has a length property, and this is the number of characters inside of the string. You notice that x was a number, so x doesn't have that property, right? So it behaves differently. But x, as you can see, for example, has a toString function, right? So if I do variable z is x to string, right? Now z is the string one. So z is no longer a number. Z is a string now. So that's one thing to keep in mind when you're working with objects. You want to be aware of, you know, if you're going to be doing math, you got to make sure you're operating on numbers. Otherwise, you're going to get results that are not, you know, what you might expect. You're probably wondering, how do I know what a variable is? So if you just have z, how do I know if it's a string or a number? For that, you can use the type of function in JavaScript. Oops, spelled like this. So this is going to return a string that determines what the type of a given variable is. So if I set z back to a number, and I do type of z, right, now I get number. And you would be using this inside of conditional statements. So if you need to know what a data type is, what you generally use in JavaScript is you use an if statement. An if statement is a very simple expression that just asks if, and then it has a kind of condition in here inside of the parentheses, and then it has a body inside of curly brackets that basically is executed if the condition you've defined here matches, right? So let's do a simple example. So we know z is 1, so we can write if z. Now notice I'm using two equal signs here, and that's because I'm evaluating the value inside of z. The single equal sign is used to assign something, right? So I'm saying if z is 2, right, then, you know, z is 2, right? We're going to just write that out to the console. Now this is not doing anything because z is actually 1. So what we could do is we could expand this and write else, right? And now this is basically if this condition is not true, then we go into the else statement and we write out z is not 2. Right. So now, as you would expect, we're getting this this result here. And you know, you can wrap these inside of functions. So we could, for instance, write a function that checks the type of a variable. So we can write a function called, you know, isNumber. It takes a single argument a, right? Anything. And in it we do, you know, if type of a equals number, return return true, which is the other data type that I actually wasn't going to cover, but that's a Boolean data type. Maybe let's not use that. Let's do return 1. And then else return 0. And then, of course, we have to put another curly bracket, right? Because here we're going into what happens if a is a number. Then we're saying, here we're going into what happens if a is not a number. Here we're ending the if statement, and here we're ending the function. So now we can do, well, let's set z to, not a number. So let's say z is, some kind of text. So now we do is number z, and we get 0 as we would expect. Notice I'm using the tab key, so I'm just starting to write and then I just tab and it gets me to the end of that. So this just makes things a little more convenient. And the up and down keys, just go back to your entire history of what you've written before. So this is very convenient. Okay, so let's just clear the console here. Okay, I actually need that. Okay, so that's a function, and there's a condition inside of here, and we've looked at basically numbers and strings.